Hello students, welcome back to Good Learners. This is Safia Siddiqui and I'm back with the second video for your chapter From Trade to Territory. Here we talk about the East India Company and how it expanded its territory, and we also talk about its administration and its army. Let's begin. So students, in the previous video, we saw how the company resorted to diplomatic and political games in order to gain territories. But when faced by serious threats, they also went for direct military confrontation, as it happened in the southern state of Mysore. Now, like Bengal, Mysore also had a strong leadership in the form of Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan. Now, the trade of pepper, cardamom and sandalwood happened from Mysore. Now, what did Tipu Sultan do? He basically disallowed the local merchants to sell to the company. And on top of that, he made healthy trade relations with the French, who were a competition. Now the British were furious about it, and so they decided to confront Tipu Sultan and crush his kingdom. 4 wars were fought between them, and finally in the last battle of Seringapatam, Tipu Sultan died defending his kingdom. Now students, let's talk about the Maratha kingdom and let's see how the East India Company was successful in gaining control over them too. Now with the defeat in the Battle of Panipat in 1761, Maratha's dream of ruling Delhi was shattered. Now let's see how the Maratha kingdom looked like. So there was a confederacy, which is like a union of states. Now this confederacy was ruled by a Peshwa, and there were different chiefs who were under the Peshwa, who were answerable to the Peshwa. Okay, now there were several wars that the Marathas fought against the East India Company. The first war ended with the Treaty of Salbai, and there was no clear winner. Finally, in the Third Anglo-Maratha War, the Maratha power was crushed. The Peshwa was now sent away on the pension, and the East India Company now had control over the territories down south too. Now, with the several wars that the company was fighting, it is quite clear that the company now adopted aggressive techniques for territorial expansion. Now, under Lord Hastings, a new policy of paramountcy was introduced. Now, according to this policy, the company claimed that they are the supreme power and they're above everyone else, and so they have the right to territorial expansion. All different policies of theirs was now guided by this view, that they are supreme and above everyone else. But there obviously was dissent and challenge from different people, right? As you can see in the slide, Rani Channamma and Rayanna resisted against the policy of the company. Now, not just the revolutionaries in India, but the company also considered Russia as a threat, as Russia in the 1830s was expanding its territory. Now, company was worried that Russia would attack and try to capture India from the northwest. And so to prevent this, company fought a prolonged war with Afghanistan and established an indirect rule there. The next stop was Sindh and then Punjab. This is how the company now became a very prominent power in the northwest too. Now it was time for the final wave of annexation. Lord Dalhousie proposed the policy of the doctrine of lapse. Now this doctrine declared that if an Indian ruler died without a male heir, his kingdom would lapse. That is, it would become the company's territory. Satara, Sambalpur, Udaipur, Nagpur and Jhansi were captured under this. Now they moved to capture Awadh, and they added an argument saying that it was their duty to save Awadh from the misgovernment of the Nawab. Now with this the Nawab felt humiliated, and this enraged the Nawab and also the people. The people revolted and joined forces in the Great Revolt of 1857. Now as the company's territories were expanding wider and wider, it was a need to set up a new administration which was uniform all around. Now let's see how they did that. The company had established its power now in Bombay, Bengal and Madras. The British administration was basically divided into presidencies, and Bombay, Bengal and Madras were 3 presidencies ruled by the governor. Now who is a governor? A governor general was the administrative head. He was basically the supreme head of the administration. Also, a new system of justice was introduced. Each district had 2 courts, a criminal court and a civil court. Now the head from the Muslim and Hindu community were called to interpret laws. There was problem in giving interpretation of the Hindu laws, but then 11 Pandits were called to form a uniform law compilation. Apart from this, the collector was an important figure. What did he do? He collected revenue and maintained law and order with the help of the police and the judiciary. We spoke of the administration under the East India Company. Now let's talk about the company's army. Now with the company's rule, new changes were introduced into the administration, but the military strength remained an important factor. Now earlier, the Mughal army was mainly composed of cavalry, who were the soldiers on horsebacks, and infantry. Infantry had soldiers who were armed but they were on foot. Now the Mughals had more of cavalry and less of professionally trained infantry. With the East India Company, some changes were brought into the army. They introduced the Sepoy army, wherein they recruited peasants and professionally trained them. And then muskets and matchlocks were introduced, as you can see in the picture. They also started developing uniform military culture. Now European style training and discipline was introduced, which created problems. The soldiers were asked to ignore their own religious and caste identities. Now this was supposed to create a problem. We learn more about this when we study the revolt of 1857. So to conclude, we saw how the annexation techniques of the East India Company changed from political and diplomatic into military. Now with the invention of steamships, travel to India became more accessible and so trade also increased. As shown in the slide, by 1857, company now had control over 63% of the territory and 78% of the population, indirectly controlling the whole country. Now with this, we come to the end of the chapter. If you like the content, please like, share and leave your comments. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to Good Learners for more.